Okay, so that's recording, right?
Right.
So we want to let the people in, but pause. Look at this
Yeah,
son of a
you can-
bitch.
well, it's right here.
Okay, so you want to go? Let's go.
Yeah.
So when I
So you
do it
just-
next, when I do it for the relationship thing, I want to take a 10-minute break
Oh, okay.
so I can pause it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen.
Easy.
Hey, Rob. How are you? I'm okay. How are
Very
you?
nice thing to like.
My big deal was,
I'm good.
I liked and I missed and what, fingernails?
It's not something I hear, here today.
Why, you never see me.
Where's your car? What are you driving?
Do you know what colitis is?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you thought he was thinking about someone had colitis.
Yes, the girl with colitis.
My
goes
first
on.
wife, my
You know,
first
I've
wife
only
had
heard it.
colitis. She blamed me.
I only heard it.
I give it to you.
I only heard it 850 times since 1966.
Okay, so,
Let's go.
yeah, I was looking at that, I'm really sorry.
Hey, you know who else hasn't got their money back for the Who?
Me,
No, your buddy, the tile guy.
Paul,
Yeah,
yeah, and Paul was the one that told me too, that sometimes you just.
and I'll tell you who else hadn't, Randy LeBlanc.
Well, I don't think anybody's gotten that, because as long as they say they're gonna, postpone it, then they don't have to give your money back.
Oh,
But we gave like $800,
it is $800.
800 and something bucks. I just gave like that.
Are we sitting over here?
Are you on the boat today?
Yeah, really? Yeah, on the car, it's a red one, so I can't bring it in because it's not the right pages.
Oh, I got another one in my truck if you want.
What about
It's
wrong with there?
It's on the lake.
Have you been coming to this?
I came to the one
I
last.
got Jerry and Steve sitting there. Back behind. You have been coming?
I came to the last one,
Oh, okay.
but I came like a little late.
I remember.
Okay, it's a week from Sunday, so write it down.
Well, I got what's in it. We put some down.
Yeah, after that.
Okay.
I'm coming up here for 2 to 4. And we can go shower or go get a bite to eat. And then go.
So,
Can we bring a lawn chair?
I don't know, I'm gonna check my how many,
Got 2.
it's like that, that's figured.
Well, Jerry and Janine are going.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I wish we'd get a whole bunch of
So
them. You're not
what's
stepping
this?
on me. You're good.
Oh, I guess I better go get another.
Let me go get,
Hey, look in
There's
one in
He
the-
has a toothache.
Well,
He has a really bad toothache, so he didn't come
Yeah.
tonight. Who's that, Joe?
in that box,
Yeah,
you know,
so
right
I'll
next to
go
the books.
Okay.
Yeah,
See
the
what I
kids
sent
are
out to
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And so you're gonna host Jennifer at Serenity.
oh, good.
So you better just tell her you're staying.
Tell her I'm staying in the room.
Cause you know, the speakers get the rooms upstairs.
Yeah, I don't care where, but like,
She probably wanna stay with y'all, y'all play.
no, no. I don't agree, that's an
Rock and roll hall of fame.
Okay, so I wouldn't, like, that's why I was showing you that you're on Columbus.
We put the big table up here?
Huh?
We put the big table up here?
Where is, oh, I didn't know.
Yes.
I didn't put it up here, Mike did.
Which we all like.
It's over here, I get it.
Well, we better scoot down, Jerry and Janine, hold on, Shannon, let's move this over there. So it's set there and that way Jerry and Janine. They'll sit there. That way we won't, that way,
Don't worry about that.
that way we won't tear it, cause a ruckus.
You know, I keep forgetting too. Download this picture. I have a picture with you.
Did you really?
Yes, it was like
We
my
don't fit.
second year sober. Arnold?
Yeah.
It's like, cause I was sober for a year and a half.
Here,
Before I got
go
my kids
right
back,
here.
Okay.
but it's when you used to have your like curly hair. Anyway, I have
Well, they always say.
right in the front with me.
John?
How
long ago?
Grab that in.
Oh.
Good.
I have a hard time remembering last week.
Right?
Where were we?
At that dance place, remember they have like.
So what?
Oh, at, on Bay,
Yeah.
Alberta?
Yeah.
I guess it is.
Let's get done with that.
Yeah, I was like, really happy. Right now I'm struggling to get up.
I hear you.
I almost got pregnant. I'll see
There
you.
you
Happens that way.
So now I took on some more kids and.
Hey, Jeff.
Life can be a lot. It can be a lot.
Yes. But yeah, I want to show you one day.
Huh?
So I want to show you one day.
Yeah, totally.
So I was like,
So your new drum set, Dad?
I was going through my pictures like,
Hey,
Hey, why weren't you?
Yeah.
are we friends on Facebook?
Huh?
Are we friends on Facebook?
no, I don't see your Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Understood.
Make it all the way to port.
yeah.
Yeah, he won't, so I made.
Are y'all putting it like?
No, I.
Okay, so, so this is something of them.
Okay, I'll do it soon.
Mom, they said, yeah, definitely work well. So, hey.
I wonder, can we sit on chairs? Where?
Yes. I see people walking in, but it's difficult. I just.
I'm gonna go get all of that.
That's actually anniversary. Oh, well, those are yours.
Yeah.
Hey, take this and behind my seat, the driver's seat, there's a deal of flyers. Bring those up.
I'll make sure you know.
You're on.
Oh, yeah, Saturday night.
You're gonna be working Saturday
I need a pen.
Where's he?
night. You're not working Saturday night.
Oh, it's really happening.
Now, now I saw, you know, my farm.
Yes, ma'am.
If you know, Bob ever got us.
14 people working on that.
You said something like 3 or 4, yeah. 4.
Oh, my wife.
I ran out of fun in the fellowship. The pro fixing to look good. What service is it? She didn't fix it.
Let's see. I'll let you take what we have here and I'll go. Yeah.
So,
Mr. Will, what's up?
Little world out there, isn't
How are you?
How are you?
Repeat a habit.
Read.
Willie, what's the update on Jay? Anything?
Well, last week they were saying he's gonna be up there 2 weeks. Now they're sitting there saying he's gonna stay down there. Up there at 6. It's kind of changed.
Yeah.
So and that was
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, we got.
I don't know. But yeah,
Debbie's here.
Yep. We got,
Dan. Hey, Dan. Where's he at?
Hi, Danny.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I have damage
How come I don't see him? Where is he?
in my thumb, I guess. I don't
Let
know.
me see. here.
I don't know. I don't know if it's work related.
Oh, there he is.
That's all
Oh,
day.
okay. I'll go get it.
I'll go get it. So it kind of sounds like trigger finger. Yeah. That's what everyone's saying. Going to an acupuncturist tomorrow. I'm gonna exhaust every possible option before you start cutting on my.
On another note, I got an appointment with Ann tomorrow.
Good. Oh, yeah. Well, and she's the one that got it released because it was locked down.
That's what the decision was locked.
Yeah. Wow.
I wasn't her thumb or finger, but it was her thumb.
I can,
She jammed at work,
oh, yeah,
something like that, and did something,
right.
all of a sudden.
So it's,
Yeah.
so it's okay if I bend it, but then if I
I'll
try
tell
to
you how long
straighten
ago.
it, like snaps, snap straight, and
That's it.
it's really funny.
Recording in progress.
Okay, did you get what you
So,
needed?
we'll see. I don't know.
So here's what we did.
No.
Checking it out, right?
Yeah.
You see if it stopped doing it?
I don't know.
What is that?
So finally it was too painful to straighten and I got her to start massaging it. If you press on a certain spot, it's fine. You move it just fine. And then it'll stay okay for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And then it'll go right back to I'm it's, yeah. I actually have
Wow, you're still a really good.
what I think is carpal tunnel. I usually diagnose myself.
I
get that.
Pre-diagnosed.
Good, yeah.
It tells the doctor what's wrong.
Right. Anyway, I had a lot of numbness from here up
Call Jerry.
like 15 years ago. Went to the acupuncture about 8 times over about a 3-month period. And I've had a lot of problems since.
You got relations.
I'm gonna try it.
Good luck. Like it.
Oh, what I do? I don't know how that happened.
Who's Jerry? What are they gonna do? Well, that'd be a great trip going to Columbus. Oh, yeah, that's a great concept. Listen,
I am so sorry.
and then what we did is we go up, we go see Jill over there Friday or Saturday.
Hi. Thank you. It is summer.
Here's what we did. We fly in Friday,
So happy.
go see Kelly,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, because wasn't it like
go to Dr. Bob's.
wasn't it like June 1st and it was I don't know 50-something degrees?
We were in Seattle. Let's go.
Overnight.
Overnight.
Yes, yes we did.
Phoenix, well,
Yes. Yeah.
well, they went to sleep in Seattle, woke up in Phoenix.
We went from suicidal to homicidal.
Is it? There we go.
I mean that was my experience.
All right, everybody.
Yes.
Welcome. Welcome to week 20. Very cool that those of you that have made it this far, very good. Okay, a little house clean before we start. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday. It's at 2 o'clock, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
It's at 2 o'clock
Central Time.
yes, is the relationship workshop
Relations.
for relation slips for you guys there. It's 3 to 5 on your East Coast time. And later, when you guys from Europe are on here, it's gonna be 8 o'clock your time. 8 o'clock at night. And Willie, is there a meeting at Sunday night here?
At 5:30.
So we're good 2 to
We're
4. We
2
might be 20 minutes, half hour
Oh,
over.
that's fine.
Okay,
We can, right now, there's like 10 people coming at 5:30 meeting. If something happened, we have.
no,
to
we
move-
won't.
we can
We'll be
move
gone way
into
before
the
then.
on and off.
Okay. All right, everybody. So, does anybody got any questions on the first 6 steps? I mean, I'm sorry, on the first 5 steps that we went over? Any questions on the first 5 steps? Anything at all that you need to talk about?
Yeah, I just can't think.
All right. So not a lot of you guys actually did your 4th step in here. So we didn't get to go over much of what you guys wrote down, so. All right. So now we're doing 6 and 7. So step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And 7 is humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. And in the big book, when you get to this here, as you know, there's only 2 paragraphs. And some years ago, Barry, me and you were there, I think, when Joe and Charlie did their last big book study. What year was that? You remember? '97. And I don't remember if it was there or someplace else that, but
They did
Joe-
it in Arkansas.
well, there's a Joe, the original Joe quit in '97. Actually, the one we went to was Joe and Charlie and Joe, the guy that was taking over. And they're both named Joe Mack.
Okay.
The guy that was taking over was a white guy and the original Joe was a black guy. So, but Joe Mack, they were both called named Joe Mack. But the original one, their last big book study was in Arkansas, wasn't it? Where'd we go? Lawton. Okay, Lawton, Arkansas.
Either one you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't remember if it was there or a different place when I saw Joe, but I asked him one time, why there's only 2 paragraphs in the big book on 6 and 7? And he had a really good answer for that. He said that if you go to like the hardware store and you buy an axe, it doesn't come with directions. So no, a pick and a shovel is what he said. If you go to the hardware store, you buy a pick and a shovel, it doesn't come with directions. You just got to do the work. So, and that's really pretty spot on. So here, what we're going to do in 6 and 7 is we're going to learn what our defects are. And then we're going to find out what the opposites of them are. And we want to slay the defect with non-action and change the defect with action. Okay? So you want to slay the defect with non-action and you want to change the defect with action. So in other words, you want to stop doing the defect and do the opposite. Okay? So in essence, what you can say about 6 and 7 is don't do what you want to do is 6 and make yourself do what you don't want to do is 7. Repeat what? Okay, you're going to slay the defect with non-action. And what do I mean by that? We're going to slay the defect with non-action means we're not going to do it. Okay, so we're not going to participate in that behavior. We're going to slay the defect with non-action. I'm not gonna do it. Then we're gonna change the defect with action. We're gonna take action and make ourselves do the opposite. So we're gonna not do what we want to do. We're gonna make ourselves do what we don't want to do. That's 6 and 7. Stop doing what you want to do, or don't do what you want to do, and make yourself do what you don't want to do. That would be 6 and 7. And that's how we change. I think I've shared this before. You don't take a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, and start teaching him to play basketball. And every day you're training him and teaching him, and you spend a half hour, 40 minutes or an hour out there playing basketball every day. And he grows up. He doesn't grow up to be a hockey player. He grows up to be a basketball player. Or he grows up to play basketball, right? So we are what we do. And as long as I persist on taking wrong actions, I'm going to keep getting wrong results. Okay. So I got to identify what the problem is. I have to admit I'm doing the wrong thing before I can accept any new decision or make any changes. Somebody could be standing right next to me telling me I'm doing it wrong, or should be doing it this way or that way, and I just can't hear them. Okay. If we get so caught up in the problem, so caught up in what we're trying to accomplish, that we just keep trying harder to make it happen. You know, we try to squeeze the square into the circle, and it's not going to fit.
Can you repeat that part where you said identify the problem?
We got to identify the problem. We got to admit that I'm doing the wrong thing. So I keep trying harder to what? I keep trying harder to make the wrong method bring about the right results. It's not going to happen. There's a funny story about a guy that writes, well, in today's time, he sends an email to his son that he's got these 2 horses and he just can't tell them apart. And so a few days later, he sends another email and he says, I've got it figured out. He says, I've cut the tail off of the one horse and now I can tell them apart. And a week or 2 later, the hair grow back and I still have a problem. He says, but I'm going to trim the mane of one and this goes on. He keeps coming back and forth. And finally, after about a year, he sends the son an email. He says, I finally got to figure out the white horse is 6 inches taller than the black horse. Because we're so focused on doing what practicing these wrong methods and trying to make them bring about right results. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we have to recognize here. We have to recognize that this shit just don't work, and we got to change. Okay. Anybody that tries to control something that can't be controlled has to bring nothing but heartache and pain to themselves. And this is what happens to us. There's years ago, I was watching the Animal Planet. I love that show. And they were showing these monkeys in South America. And it was a really interesting story. And these guys were poaching them. And this is how they were catching them. They were climbing up the trees and they were notching a little hole in the tree. And then they'd take a stick and they'd take some food and they'd stick it in there and they'd leave. And the monkeys would come and they'd stick their hand in there and they'd grab the food and they'd get stuck. And then these guys would come back and throw the nets over them and catch them. This is how they were poaching these monkeys. And I thought that was really interesting because all they had to do to be free was let go. They just let go of the food. They could have got their hand out. And I thought, wow, I was that monkey for a long time. I just wouldn't let go of food, And some of them, there was even a case where they were showing that one monkey ripped his arm off trying to get out of there. They were so stuck. But that's the truth. All they had to do was let go, and they were free. I couldn't do it. They didn't know that that's what they had to do. And neither did I. No. I'd like to think I have more brains than the monkey, but I couldn't figure that out either. I didn't know how to let go. All right. So let's read these two little paragraphs, page 76. Last week I told you what that steps 1, 2, 3 teach me how to survive my feelings. Step 4 and 5 show me how my thinking works, and step 6 is the attitude of that thinking, and step 7 is the behavior that attitude produces, right? And you're going to see that play out over and over again. And because what 6 is, in order to work 6 is an act of defiance. That's how you have to look at this. 6 being an act of defiance, and 7 being an act of submission. So the book says, if we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We emphasize willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from all us the things that which have admitted we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. When ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and others and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. Now, it seems like, so a lot of people in the rooms will tell you that there's nothing for us to do here, that it's God's job. It is not God's job to stop you from slutting around. It is not God's job to stop you from stealing or lying or manipulating or all of these other things that we do, right? It's not God's job to do that. It's your job to do that. And that's where the hard work comes in. I think in the 12 and 12 it says, this is the step that separates the men from the boys or the women from the girls, right? Why does it say that? What does that really mean? You know why it says that? Because we come in here physically men, physically women, but we don't really want to grow up. We're still emotionally 13 or 14, and we don't really want to grow up because growing up is painful and growing up is hard. And I want to take the easiest, softer way, and I want to be told that God is going to remove my defects. Now, cool. I'll pray and let him do the work. No. It doesn't work like that. So step 6 says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Entirely insinuates a little more than doing nothing, than just saying, right? And 7, humbly asking him. It's not a begging process. It's not, oh, please God, please God, I'll be good. That's not humbling. That's not humbly. So both of them, in 6 and in 7, it's insinuating that there's work for me to do here. Now, God knows when I'm really trying not to practice the defect, and I'm really trying to practice the opposite of it. God knows that. And if I just prayed and he removed it, I'd have it back again tomorrow. So something has to happen. I have to condition myself to change. Because otherwise it ain't going to happen. That's why 6 is an act of defiance. I'm not going to do what I want to do. And 7 is an act of submission. I'm going to make myself do what I don't want to do. And that will produce change. Not immediately. Well, you'll get the immediate of not doing what you want to do right there, but it's not going to be inherent in you yet.
Is that when we ask God to help us, like, you know? Like each time, or if it's just.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you remember when I talked about the fourth step and I talked about climbing up the ladder? And I said, you know, it doesn't mean now I can climb up the ladder again. I gotta ask God to remove my fear and direct my attention to what he would have me be. And know that God is everything. And then I can climb the ladder again, right? And I had to do that 100 times, you know, and today I could climb a ladder if I have to. If I really, really have to.
Seriously, you have to stop and say the prayer.
No,
Just get up
no. I've done it enough times now that I've overcome that. I still don't like it. It's uncomfortable for me, but the whole ladder doesn't shake,
there.
you know, and I can do it, you know, and I don't have a problem with it today, you know, but if it were my choice, I'd choose not to leave the ground. This is where I want to be, right here with my feet. Okay. All right. We all kind of had the philosophy in life that if something's good, then more of it would be even better, right? Boy, did that get us in trouble. And we talk about life being unfair. Life was never as unfair to us as we were to it, really. The willingness to look at the truth is not optional. Your life depends on it. And recovery is not based on time. It's based on a desire to change and a willingness to take action. And that's what we're talking about here. Don't do what you want to do. Make yourself do what you don't want to do. Change is the name of the game. So here, this is interesting. Most people think that change is based on what you're going to get. Okay, if I change, if I really change, what's in it for me? Right? What am I going to get if I change? Right? Isn't that what life is all about? If I'm going to do something, what's in it for me? But over here, that's not what it's about. We're talking about change here. It's not about what am I going to get. This is about what am I willing to let go of. You understand? This is not about, I don't ask myself, what am I going to get? I ask myself, what am I willing to let go of? I need to be able to let go of things in order to change. You know, yeah, anybody ever been in a hot air balloon? Or you've seen them before? Right? You know how they get off the ground and go in the air? There's sandbags in there. And they throw the sandbags out and the balloon goes up. Now, you people want, like me, you want to go up, but you don't want to get rid of the sandbags. You want to hold on to the sandbags and go up. It don't work like that. So changes are not about what are we going to get. Change is about what am I willing to let go of? What am I willing to give up? I have to give up something in order to change. And when I give up that something, I need to fill it up with something positive. So what we're going to do when we do our fourth and our fifth step and we talk with our sponsors, and we're going to make a list of all the defects of character that we have. And I gave Willie a kind of a cheat sheet that's got pages of, he's going to make copies for you guys, got pages of different words with the opposite next to it. Because sometimes we don't know what the opposite is. And that'll help you, that sheet. And he'll have them for you next week. And so we want to know what our defects are, and we want to know what the opposite is. So now I can say, okay, I need to recognize this is a defect. Oh, this is what I'm getting into, or this is what I'm thinking, or this is what I'm about to do, or this is what I'm doing, and stop. And don't do what I want to do. Then I got to make myself do what I don't want to do, which is the opposite. All right, so that sheet will help you with that. Yeah.
Hey, Danny,
Yes.
I feel like for all the years I've been trying to figure this out, this peace and purpose I'm searching for in sobriety. and a better life. I've been blocked by these two steps because of the fear of letting go of, even though I know it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
And not knowing and having fear of what I'm replacing it with is gonna work.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you kind of making it more clear to me, because it's like kind of getting over that little hump.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about a few minutes ago. It's trying to bring, it's trying harder, the wrong method to bring about the right results. Because, I don't know if it's subconsciously or what, but we just don't realize that this is the same shit. It's not going to change, right? And I just got to try harder to make it work, but I'm not changing the method of what I'm doing. Okay. So, hi. Okay. And here's another thing you have to understand, that all the change that comes about in our life is through God working in our lives. And that change is by our consent and our permission. So all the change that comes about in our life through God working in our lives is through our consent and our permission. The growth that happens through our will and our consent. So we have to make this decision, and we have to become willing and ready. So in other words, what I just said may sound confusing. Let me tell you one of my favorite ways to put it is, to me, this is just for me, my God is such a gentleman, I really believe this, that he's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. I'm going to say that again so you get it. To me, God, and you don't have to believe this, I'm just sharing with you what I believe. To me, God is such a gentleman that he's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. So what does that mean? That means that it doesn't really matter what I pray when I'm on my knees, because I get off my knees and I undo my prayers with my actions. Sometimes I maybe need to write down what I'm praying for so I can carry it with me and not undo it throughout the day. Okay? Because I'm really good at praying on something and doing just the opposite when I get off my knees. So all the change that happens is through our consent and our permission. God is not going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. How am I telling God if I want him to or not? It's my actions. It's not what I'm praying when I'm on my knees. It's not when I'm in a jam and I'm doing the foxhole prayer. It's how am I living every day? How are my actions? What's going on in my life? How am I acting like a man, like a father, like a husband, like a friend, like a brother, like a recovering person, like a business person, like a boss? How am I acting? How am I living my life? You remember old Randolph, Barry? He called me a couple months ago. I haven't spoken to him in 10 years. But he used to say, somebody say, how you doing? Somebody would say, oh, good. He said, no, how you really doing? How you really doing? Everybody get pissed off about it. How you really doing? I'm doing good, I said. All right. So does anybody got any questions on any of this so far? Is this making sense to you? There's a lot to this 6th and 7th step that we need to talk about. So, and last week you also got the 4 absolutes, right? And these are pretty cool. And this is a good guide to see. If you guys didn't get one, I don't know. These 2 ladies? Yeah. Willie's got a couple there. So the 4 absolutes are really a good guide to how you're living. And you can always test yourself by looking at these and ask yourself. See, there's 4 things here. absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, absolute love, absolute purity. So when you get to it, absolute honesty is, the question is it true or is it false? So what I'm doing or what I'm thinking about doing, I just can ask myself, is it true or is it false? And then you get into absolute unselfishness, and they're not in any particular order. And the question there is, how will this affect others? What I'm doing and what I'm thinking about doing, how is this going to affect others? Okay. And then you get to absolute love. Is it ugly or is it a beautiful? Is this act I'm doing, is this an ugly act or is it a beautiful thing? And then the last one is absolute purity, and is it right or is it wrong? And if you answer to the negative in any one of the four of these, then don't do it. Don't do it. So if you're not sure, you know, when we started this thing 20 weeks ago, one of the first things I said to you guys, for new people, it's a good practice to talk about it, write about it, pray about it. Right? Talk about it, write about it, pray about it. Whatever it is. Talk to your sponsor, get on your knees and pray and write down the good and the bad that can happen. That's a good practice. I didn't just mean that for step one. That goes right through everything in life. Talk about it, pray about it, write about it. If you're not sure, talk to your sponsor. Pray to God. Make a little list of the good and the bad that can happen if whatever what you're doing. And check yourself with the four absolutes. And if you're a negative on one of them, then don't do it. If it's ugly, don't do it. If it's wrong, don't do it. If it's false, don't do it. If somebody's going to be affected badly by it, don't do it. Real simple. Because, you know, we're great at standing around. I just don't know what the right thing to do is. Or I don't know what God wants me to do. You know, you got to stop saying that if you're sober for a while, because it's bullshit. You know, we've already concluded that you may not know what God wants, but you always know what God doesn't want. So don't do that. If you know God doesn't want that, don't do it. But if you answer negative to one of the four absolutes, don't do it. Stop doing what you know is wrong and practice right as you understand it. The whole thing here is to change who I am. To change who I am. I am nowhere near the same person I was 30 years ago. Nowhere near the same person I was. I still got a long way to go. But I am nowhere near who I used to be. Because we kind of come in here, we kind of think that recovery is about how I feel. No, it's not. Recovery is about what I do in spite of how I feel. You know, I mean, we've told people that, you know, we sponsor kind of be a little harsh sometimes. And I was told the same thing when I first got sober, is, you know, sitting down and sponsor. Oh, let me tell you how I feel about that. I don't give a shit how you feel. I really don't want to hear it. I don't care how you feel. You're here to do something, and I'm here to help you do it. And this is what I want you to do. So save the how you feel, save the drama for your mama, and just do the work in front of you. If you do the work, your life's going to change. I can't change your life for you. I can only help direct it. You have to take the initiative. And our literature kind of insinuates that when you do, God will help you. And if you read the big book, you know, God helps those who help themselves, right? And God's not going to do for us what we can do for ourselves. Doesn't mean he won't help us. The problem is most of us are really just full of shit. You know, we just spent our whole life bullshitting everybody, ourselves included. And we come in here and we stop drinking and drugging and we think now it's gonna change. It's nothing gonna change. All you are now is somebody that don't drink and drug, that's full of shit and bullshitting everybody. Really, I mean, that's what it amounts to. You know, they say if you take a thief and sober him up, you got a sober thief. You take a prostitute and sober her up, you got a sober prostitute. You see here's the thing, here's what's gonna happen. There's gonna come a point in that person's life where he's gonna say to himself, you know what, I'm not robbing, I'm not stealing, and I'm doing this stuff and I'm not really getting anything out of it. What's the sense? Is this all there is to it? Or, you know, and it's gonna make sense to that person, be it a thief, a prostitute, or anything else. It's gonna make sense to that person. It's gonna make more sense to that person to go ahead and get loaded than it is to change what they're doing. And think about that. How many people have you seen come in these rooms and sit in these seats for weeks, months, and years, but never do the work? They're not really hard to spot. You know, you can spot them. They're all around us. They're stark raving sober. They're usually mad as hell. Usually always complaining about something or someone. Usually cursing somebody out. You know, and there's some people around that are, you know, bleeding deacons, been sober for decades, and they're just as sour as a 6-month-old person. Huh?
I resemble that.
I wasn't talking about you, Mike. But you see, and this is the thing, right? It makes more sense for that person to stop doing this recovery thing than it does for them to stop and change who they are. Because they never really were doing the recovery thing. They were just going to meetings, talking to a sponsor, sharing in meetings, you know, memorizing how it works and spewing it off. Would somebody like to read how it works? I'll read it. Oh, I don't need that. Impress everybody with reciting how it works, you know. Yes, Lynn.
Is that what they mean by, what Bill means by, a guy can't be constitutionally honest with himself? Can't be honest about working steps, being honest about.
Constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. I don't know if that's, I'm going to say no to that, because not that it's totally not right, because there's some people that falls into that category. But I think more so than not, there's a lot of people that aren't constitutionally incapable. They just don't want to do no work. They just don't. They just, you know, they just think I'm okay. You know, I'm not drinking. I'm not drugging. The dogs let me pet them. The wife let me back into bed, and you know, the boss gave me another chance at work. Shit, I got it going on. You know, but this is, we said this at week 1 and 2, is that not drinking and not using is the lowest form of sobriety. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, this is so much more about, Bill Wilson said there's a lot wrong with us, of which a lot has to be done. And all of these steps we're talking about, once we left step 1, is not about the problem. It's about the solution. So now we're talking about changing who we are. That's a tough, you know, that doesn't happen by, you know, just going to some meetings. It doesn't happen by going to some meetings and getting a sponsor. It doesn't happen by going to a meeting, getting a sponsor, and calling them. It doesn't happen by going to meet and getting a sponsor, calling them, and going to help carry the message. Because if you haven't put this in your life, you're not carrying the message. You're most likely carrying the mess. Because how could you know what the message is until you've experienced it? Here's another thing that's people like us happen with us. we preconceive things to be certain ways. We all do that. I still do it today. And I don't know if you're anything like me, or like I used to be, I should say. But people like us, when reality differs from our preconception, it's easier for us to ignore reality than it is to change our preconception. You understand what I just said to you? We preconceive things to be certain ways. And when reality differs from that preconception, it's easier to ignore reality than it is to change our preconception, because I already got it figured out. I already know how he is. I don't even know him. You ever look at somebody and not like them? I'm not talking to you, Joe.
Today.
No, really. Have you ever looked at somebody besides Mike and not liked them? Have you ever listened to somebody share and just character assassinated the shit out of them in your head? Right? Who's guilty of that? Yeah. Okay. And so when that happens, if you look back on it, you're going to notice something. That you've now marked that person in your negative list. And they could be the nicest person in the world. You never gave them the chance. Now, it's true. They could still be a piece of crap. But you don't know because you didn't give them the chance. Because you preconceived the situation and you're ignoring reality and going with your preconception. And that doesn't just happen with people. It happens with things and circumstances and situations. Think about that. It's pretty sick if you really think about it. Oh, when we do the relationship stuff, we're going to talk a lot about that. Magical thinking, When I find the right woman, she's going to make my life perfect, I don't have to do shit to change who I am. Just being with her. I don't even know who she is yet, right? She's going to make my life perfect. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about that Sunday. Trust me.
2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah, we're going to try to jam it in there. All right. Anybody got any questions? Need to talk about something there?
You said Sunday? What did you say?
Not this Sunday, next Sunday, the 27th, from 2 to 4, right here in this room. Relationship workshop.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
from Soonland, I got a question. You said step 6 is an act of defiance?
Who's
Step
this?
7, Dan.
Oh, hey, Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah, six is an act of defiance, and 7 is an act of submission.
submission. Thank you.
Yes. So in other words, it's all about don't do what you want to do and make yourself do what you don't want to do.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So when we look back on the other steps, we see how they work. We can see that we took them to give us the ability to take steps 6 and 7, where the changes can really begin. In step 1, we saw what the problem was. In step 2, we saw what the solution was. In step 3, we made a decision. Step 4, we got to work to identify the things that blocked us. Step 5, we re-examine these things and getting down to their exact nature, making sure they were fine-tuned, okay? And now we're ready to start changing. So steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 put us in a position to really do 6 and 7. And at this point, many people make the mistake that they think that it's God's job to change you. That's a huge mistake. Don't make that mistake. Because it says, what does it say here? The step says, we're ready to have God remove the defects of character. So it's God's job to remove these defects of character. Because in 6 it says we're entirely ready to have God remove them. So yeah, we have to do the work. Yeah. And character defects are kind of like, they're like your in-laws. You can't stop them from coming over, Just don't let them unpack their bags. All right? I came home one night, my father was sleeping on my brand new couch. And he's 6'4" and like 270 pounds. And I says to my wife, I said, what's going on? She said, I had a fight with my mother, just to stay over tonight, maybe tomorrow. 2 years later, when he left, my couch was lopsided like this. And I had a parrot, and we went on vacation, and he was there, and I babysit my parrot. I came home, my parrot was gone. I said, "Where's my bird?" He flew out the window. I said, "He flew out the window. You had him out of the cage, and you had the window open." I think it's time for you to go now.
I don't think.
He's still alive.
No, he's not alive.
I didn't think so.
He was a good
He
guy.
didn't live
You
very
got to
long.
understand something. My first wife and I, we grew up in the same block in the same neighborhood, so I know the whole family my entire life. You know, we're actually very close, but you know. All right. So this is the changing process. Okay, at this point, you just can't turn it over to God. God doesn't need to do step 6 and 7, but you do. Now, last week we talked about 1, 2, 3 shows me how to survive my feelings, right? And 4 and 5 show me how my thinking is, and then 6 was the attitude of that thinking produced, and then 7 was the behaviors of that attitude. And that's important for here in 6 and 7, because I'm going to look at what this thinking is all about, and the behaviors that thinking brought about. So all of these defects of character have been fine-tuned over the years. It's like I said with the kid, you teach him basketball, right? Basketball, 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 basketball. He doesn't start playing hockey. So we have to slay the defect with non-action and change the defect with action. So we're going to have to stop doing this that we want to do, and we make ourselves do this thing that we don't want to do, which is the opposite of the defect. Eventually, if you're honest and you ask God to help you, and you're on a spiritual path, and you're really applying yourself at this stuff. And I don't mean just not drinking and going to meetings. That ain't gonna change you. You know, it'll change you a little bit, but it ain't gonna require the change in you that you're gonna need to grow spiritually. So you have to practice at this stuff. If you do, eventually, your defects will change. And you can start crossing them off your list one at a time. Now, don't cross them off a permanent marker, because they'll come back. Okay? Because I've had defects that I thought I got rid of years ago, and somebody said or did something, and my veins popped out of my neck, and I went, where the hell did that come from? I thought I lost that one. They're not very far. Okay? They're just subdued. But the important thing is that if you learn the opposite of them, you have something different to practice now. And there's something different that you're going to practice is a positive thing. And so I think I said to you a few weeks ago, you can't practice negative stuff and grow spiritually. It doesn't happen. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to practice spiritual things and positive things. You can't practice negative shit and grow spiritually. It don't work like that. So we've seen the damage that these character defects have caused, right? And after discussing them in our 5th step, and we should now be willing to let go of them. But even if we aren't willing to let go of them, it covers that too, because we pray for the willingness until it comes. So step 6 is getting the willingness to let go of them. Once we're willing, we ask God to remove them in 7. And so 6 and 7 are companion steps, okay? They're not steps we take one after the other. They're companion steps that we take together. Now, what I do, and this is just what I do, and I found it very useful. I've been doing it for many years now, And the people I work with, I encourage them to do the same thing. I use 6 and 7 in my 11th step in the morning. I don't ask God for anything except for awareness. It's the only thing I've asked God for, and I don't know how many years, probably 20 years or more. I just ask God for awareness.
Of yourself.
Awareness of what I need to be working on. And I bring 6 and 7 into the 11th step. What defect am I looking at today? What defect am I working on today? What defect am I going to have up front in my head? Because you have to try to be aware of all your defects, but the ones that are most glaring are the ones you're going to try to work on first. So that's the one I bring into my 11th step, and I ask God to give me awareness on that. Just help me be aware of when I'm thinking that or acting that way, and then I know I need to stop that and change. Okay, you've heard the saying before: you don't have to ride the garbage truck all the way to the dump yard anymore. Well, you don't. You don't have to ride that defect to misery and all the way. You could stop. You could stop. You can get back. You could do one of these deals. Enough. Whatever. All right, and you just started your day over. And you can do that, and you can change over a period of time. You're going to change. You're going to condition yourself. You're going to use the same method that you used to hone these defects in, the same process to eliminate them and get something different to replace them. Practice, practice, practice. So this little kid that started at 4 years old, teaching him how to play basketball, and now he's 15 and he plays basketball every day, right? Now you want him to stop playing basketball and learn how to play hockey. That ain't going to happen unless he stops playing basketball and gets onto the ice every day and practice. And he may not, you don't even have to like what you're doing. You just have to not like what you've always done and what you got from what you've always done. Does that make sense? You don't have to like this change and this working on this change. You just got to not like how you've been living anymore. When I got here, so people say this all the time, and I always go like this: what kind of life did you have? Because when I got here, nobody had anything that I wanted. I'm serious. Now, one of you people what was it? Guy that had a nice chick, done with that, guy had a nice car. But really, nobody had anything that I wanted. I just didn't want what I had anymore when I got here. That was the important thing. That was the thing that mattered. I didn't want what I had anymore. How do you know when you need a new car? Huh? And don't work anymore. You know you need a new car when the other one don't work anymore, right? Because otherwise you got a car that works pretty good. You don't get up in the morning and say, "Oh, I need a new car." And like people pray. I don't know how many guys I've heard with years of sobriety, they talk about praying in the morning for God to keep them away from a drink. Help them not take a drink. That doesn't make any sense. You're 20 years sober. Why are you praying to keep away from a drink? It's like praying for a new car, getting a new car, and the next day waking up praying for a new car. Why would you pray for a new car if you just got a new car yesterday? Why do you need to pray if you're 20 years without a drink? Why do you need to pray that God helps you not drink? I bet you there's other things in your life that you need some work on. I guarantee you there's other things in your life that you could work on, that you can ask God to help you there. That would be much more useful to you and others, probably to all the people around you. Right? That's what we do here. That's what we want to do here. We want to work on the things that I don't need. I'm coming up on 30 years sober. I don't need to get up in the morning and pray that I don't drink or use. That's not even on my, if I had to list this long of things to pray, it wouldn't even be on there. I tell you, I only pray for the one thing. I pray for awareness. That's it. I just want awareness of what I need to work on today to improve my life. I'm not trying to be a spiritual guru. I'm not trying to be any of that stuff. I just want to be a little better today than I was yesterday. That's it. So what stops me from doing that? What blocks me from God and from you people? My defects of character. That's what stops me and blocks me from these things. All right, so we got, what is it? Do we have 5 minutes or 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, let's keep talking. Anybody got any questions?
On that.
Yeah, Mike.
That one, a new car. I probably got a little bit harder head, but I do, pray for a new car when my feet are still forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay to pray for a new car. But if you get one, there's no need to wake up in the morning and pray for a new car again.
Well, unless my feet.
Let's just feel still getting some. All right. So what I was talking about was practice, 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 right? Why? Because the reason why is because whatever you practice, you become good at. Whatever it is you practice, you become good at. You agree, Lynn? Whether it's baseball, piano, working on a computer, you learn that skill because you work at it. But there's things that you can't learn just by reading. See, Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of action. I had one of my brothers, he's dead now, but he was a genius. You could give him a book this big and he could read it, and he was one of these speed readers. He read it that quick, and you give him a test, he'll get 100. But if he was walking down the street and the guy said, I got these watches, they're worth $500, give me 100, you can have one, he'd buy them all. And he'd come and tell you what a great deal he got. He had no common sense. But he was so intelligent book-wise. So, but you can't learn that stuff here. You have to do this. It's kind of like, I guess, golfing, right? You could read all kinds of books on golfing. There's all kinds of books out there on how to golf. But until you get out there and learn how to golf, you're not going to be good at it. You got to practice at it. So you got to practice at the opposite of your defects in order to change. All right. So let's do, oh, you know what? Does anybody know how a lobster sheds their shell? Anybody know? So I tell you, I watch a lot of this Animal Planet stuff. Yeah.
I know how I shed.
So a lobster's shell doesn't grow. When the lobster grows, their shell doesn't grow. So they have to shed their shell. Got to watch this. Can't say that 5 times fast. But, so it's very interesting. I'm telling you, Animal Planet. What happens is the lobster will go down deep and go in between the rocks and under the rocks and get really, when the lobster is really uncomfortable because his shell is not growing like with him, he goes down and he gets in between the rocks and he bangs, he turns, he scrapes, and he breaks the shell off. And there's a period of time, I'm not sure how long that period of time is. There's a period of time where he's shellless. And then a shell grows back that fits his body. And when he grows more, he goes back down. So the thing is, when he gets uncomfortable, he gets rid of the shell that is confining him. When you start getting uncomfortable, get rid of the defect that is confining you. We've got a couple of minutes. Who's got a question? We'll just stay with questions for a few minutes and we'll talk more about this next week. Yes.
Hey, man, I know this ain't got nothing to do, man, but it's a very, very fast one.
Yeah. Yeah.
What really happened, huh?
I'm so very.
I had an African gray. Oh, no, that was the one that flew out the window was a double yellow-headed Amazon. I actually, this is back in the 70s, I actually smuggled him across the Tijuana border in a bag tied underneath the car. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that today. But in those, not from New York, that's a hell of a flight. I had him about 6 years. And, yeah, Sandy, because I got him through San Diego. And then I flew him into Newark Airport and picked him up at the airport and took him to the Bronx. And he was a lot of fun.
You still have a bird.
I've got a macaw now, big one like this.
What's his name?
Yeah, they talk. His name is Guapo.
Where'd he go?
They named him after me. Guapo means handsome. Yeah, he talks. Yeah, but I had an African gray that was really, he talked like a sailor, cursed everybody. He used to curse everybody. Yeah.
Are you gonna have this on Zoom?
That is going to be on Zoom.
Good. Are you gonna do a YouTube on it? Cause I know I'll be asked. Yes.
I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm not sure if YouTube's going to take it because it's going to be 2 hours.
Gotcha.
So right now they're just taking these hour videos. Do you think they'll take it, YouTube?
We can always stop it and restart it at the hour point.
For the part 1 and 2.
Oh,
You
yeah.
said you're gonna take a 2-minute break?
I got an idea. Maybe we could stop it at the hour point and restart it then. How's that?
That's a great idea.
Like that idea?
That's why you're in charge.
All right, anybody got a question? Come on, we got a few minutes left. Anybody online got a question? Don't forget, you people in Europe that are watching this tomorrow, it's 8 o'clock your time Sunday night. And you people in on the East Coast, it's 3 o'clock your time. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody got a question? All
I
right.
got a question.
Okay, yes.
Hey, so you're saying in step 6,
Hold on, guys.
we're entirely ready to have God remove these. So you're saying that's the work of step 6, that we have to get ready to let go of that shit.
Yes.
We have work to do in 6 because we have to work to become
Yeah.
entirely ready.
The work in six, Larry, is the defiance, is to not do what you want to do. That requires a lot of work. That's not easy. These things are so, part of us. If it weren't for defects of character, when I got here, I wouldn't have any character at all. So,
But God's not going to lift it out of us. We have to get ready for him to
no. So we have to not do the defect part, and then we have to make ourselves do the opposite. So that would be 7. But 6 requires us not doing the negative part.
And that's how we're to become entirely ready. Because then
Yes.
the boys from, because if
Yeah.
we're not ready
Doing that work shows that we're entirely ready.
to be even aware that there's work to do.
Well, you should
I
be,
was in
you've just done a
6th
4th and 5th step, so you should be aware that you have defects of character.
Right. And that's what we're talking about, entirely ready to dump that shit from 4 and 5,
Yes. Yes.
which is a lot of work.
Yes.
It's a lot of work to recognize it and then try to get rid of it.
Yes, it is.
Because most people don't even recognize that shit for a long time.
No, awareness is half the problem, half the solution, I should say.
So we have
All right,
work to
guys.
do in
That's it. We're out of time. Start on time. We finish on time. All right. I'll see you guys same time, same channel next week.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Danny.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye.
So long.
Have a good week.
All right. You too.